I'm Veronica Marshall at the Capitol. This week on Senate Spotlight, do you have plans this November? We hope they include strengthening our democracy by showing up at the polls and making your voice count.
Folks who can donate to a campaign $5 or $10 or $20 or even, $500, which is a lot of money, really pales into comparison to these corporations.
From defeating dark money in our elections to banning scam political action committees.
This bill is looking at entities that are purporting to support or oppose a particular organization, party, policy, whatever, but they are actually pocketing the money themselves.
We share the legislature's latest efforts to improve our election integrity. Plus,
you have an opportunity to ask the questions and truly understand what people think, because all politicians claim to speak for the people. We all claim to say that we know what our constituents want, but we don't until we knock on those doors.
How Senator Michael Holmstrom's past led him to the Senate and possibly to your door. That's all coming up.
Senate Spotlight is produced by the Minnesota Senate and Senate Media Services.
Nearly 4.3 million Minnesotans cast a ballot in 2024. That's just over 76%, giving us one of the best voter turnout rates in the country. So when Senator Liz Boldon says Minnesotans are voters, she means it. It's also why she says she's committed to making sure every one of our voices is heard. Senator, welcome back to Senate Spotlight.
Thank you so much for having me back.
Absolutely, it's my pleasure. Let's start off by talking about the federal Safeguard American Voter Eligibility Act, or also known as the SAVE Act. Break down for us what that is.
Yeah. So this is a bill in federal legislation that we are tracking and watching. It currently has passed out of the House. It is sort of sitting and ready for action in the Senate. And it requires a few things. It would require Americans to provide proof of citizenship in person when they're registering to vote. So that would be like a passport, a certified birth certificate. Things that not everyone has, I will note, and costs money to acquire if you don't have it, and we can come back to that. It also would functionally eliminate online or mail-in registration, and it requires a valid photo ID to be provided when voting. So that would be not a student or tribal ID, those don't qualify, and not all military IDs will qualify. And so really what it does is it creates barriers for people to be able to vote. Voting is a right that all eligible folks, Americans have, and so putting these things in place are going to disenfranchise millions of Americans, honestly. So I have huge concerns with it, as do many Americans and many Minnesotans.
And you mentioned that there is a cost associated with birth certificates and passports, and you said you would explain that a little more. So tell me about that.
Yeah, so as I said, it would require people to have sort of these documentations to have in person with them, and not, as I said, not everyone has a passport. 146 million Americans don't have a valid passport. Only about 55% of Minnesotans have passports, and so that's a very large number of people who, then if they want to vote, which again is a right, would have to go get a passport, which comes with a cost of, in dollars, it can be upwards of $150 plus, but also time in terms of getting documents and going through the process. And it again would create barriers for people to have to go through those steps. And largely it affects women. As you think about, who has changed their name, who doesn't have a name that is the same on their birth certificate as it might be on their driver's license. It is, in large part women who have been married. And so in adding these extra steps and these extra barriers for people to exercise a right that they have, it really amounts to essentially a poll tax. If people have to go to pay to get these documents, and it really is a tax on some Americans and not others.
And I have to say on my half, I have my birth certificate and it is old and it is torn in places, so I don't even know if that would be counted, but if I needed a new one, I'd have to pay for that too and get it shipped to me and yada yada, so that's part of that equation as well. Would this only apply to new voters, or who does it impact?
Yeah. It would impact everyone who is registering to vote, everyone who's seeking to register to vote, anyone who updates their address, anyone who relies on mail-in voting. As I said, it would essentially alter that. People would have to, for mail-in voting, they would have to submit photocopies of their documents, which again creates another barrier. Not everyone has access to photocopying documents. And so it would affect everyone who doesn't essentially already have all of these materials available to them.
Right, so that's new voters, people who've moved, rural voters. It's trying to correct a problem, and the problem is non-citizen voting. You know, to your knowledge, is that a problem?
I would say it's trying to correct a problem that doesn't exist. If we look at the data, if we look at the evidence, out of the hundreds of millions of votes that have been cast in U.S. elections since 2003, there have been about a dozen or less instances of non-citizens voting. There just is not data to back this up. Voting by non-citizens is illegal right now. In fact, when you go to register with the Minnesota Secretary of State, the very first question that is asked of you is affirming that you are a citizen. It is quite clear that that is a necessity, and there are steep consequences for people who do register and vote and are not citizens. They will be deported. You know, people are not risking that to vote. There's not any evidence to back up that this is a problem across the country or in Minnesota.
People who support the SAVE Act say it can improve election security by adding that extra layer of documentation. You know, what's your take on that?
I would say, again, it's trying to solve a problem that doesn't exist. And in doing that, it's creating barriers for millions of people. It would disenfranchise millions of Americans and many, many Minnesotans, people who, don't right now have those documents, but, American citizens, people eligible to vote, but don't have those documents right now, would have to spend the time, resources, money to get them. As this has being debated and sort of out there, I have talked to many, many people who have said, this would really be a challenge for me, that, my name now is different. I've been married, I've changed my name. I was born in another state, so now I'm gonna have to go, I don't have my birth certificate anymore. I'm gonna have to go back to this other state, get my birth certificate. There are errors sometimes in documents, and so having to get those corrected. And so there are a lot of ways that this is gonna disenfranchise people, again, from a right that they have to vote. And so it gives me big concerns that we're not actually solving a problem, but we are creating barriers for people.
Not solving a problem, but creating new ones, it sounds like. I want to turn to something else you're working on in response to federal election efforts. You have a bill, Senate File 4147, which would minimize the influence of dark money on Minnesota's elections. And that's a response to the United States Supreme Court's Citizens United ruling. So tell me about that. Those are a lot of buzzwords that I've heard. So tell me what that means.
Yes, I am very happy to talk about this. And I will say, as I have been working on this bill, a lot of people have been reaching out to me saying, I'm really excited about this. Thank you for your work on this. So this does, as you said, try to get at the problem of dark money in our elections. And so when we think about that, there is a lot of money being spent in our elections. And I want to just give a couple of figures to kind of frame that up for people. Outside spending in our elections nationwide has skyrocketed. And this is, as you said, in relation to the Citizens United decision, which was a Supreme Court decision that essentially opened the doors and the floodgates for corporations to spend in our elections. And so prior to that decision, in 2008, there was about $144 million in outside money spent in our elections nationally. That number has increased to, in 2024, it was $4.5 billion. That's an increase of 2,800%. So an explosion. And Minnesotans know that. They see that, and they don't like it. And so when we talk about that spending, it often is not transparent. And so when we talk about dark money in our elections, it really is that we don't know where it's coming from. And Minnesotans also don't like that. They want to know who is trying to influence their vote, and they should have a right to know who's trying to influence their vote and spending. And so this bill is aimed at increasing that transparency and limiting the powers of corporations to spend in our elections. And so it does just that. It is very clear in law that corporations are delineated powers by the state. We, as the state legislature, have the responsibility, the ability to designate what powers corporations have. That is very clear. And that means that we don't have to give them the power to spend money in our elections. And so my bill just removes that power from them. And that really is the only thing it changes. All the other powers remain, but it removes the power for them to spend money in our elections.
I know that there's that discomfort of not knowing who's influencing you, but talk to me about the other impact on Minnesotans. Like I heard in committee, there was one former elected official who talked about how she got, incredibly outspent and she didn't know by who, and so it's kind of kicking out those more grassroots campaigns.
It really is, and that's one of the things I hear from Minnesotans is they feel like their voices are getting drowned out. And folks who can donate to a campaign $5 or $10 or $20 or even $500, which is a lot of money, really pales into comparison to these corporations who are spending, as we just heard, billions of dollars in our elections. And those statistics are what I gave, our national statistics. I will just say in Minnesota, a report from the U of M Humphrey School of Public Affairs found that over half of the spending in the most competitive races in 2020 in Minnesota had a lot of that was dark money spending. State elections in Minnesota in 2024 attracted over $25 million in outside spending. And so Minnesotans just feel like their voices are being squashed by this dark money, this giant spending from corporations. And that translates into candidates who are experiencing this in their race too. We did have, as you said, that testifier in committee who experienced that and just was not able to really, there was no transparency of where this money flooded in and came from, and it's very difficult for Minnesotans to overcome that.
This bill has been called a new approach. It's novel, and if it passes, it'll be the first of its kind in this country. But there are risks associated with that. It's unknown territory, right? And in committee, concerns were brought up about its constitutionality and how it could lead to an expensive legal fight. So I want to get your reaction to that.
Yeah, I think that's a valid question and something we certainly should be thinking about. I think this is a novel approach and one that is being tried and in varying degrees of progress across the country. There are many states who are now trying this, and will Minnesota be the first one to get it across the finish line? I don't know, but I think it is very clear that we have a problem. And so we should be looking at all the solutions at our disposal. I think this is a solid one. I think it is on very solid legal ground, and I'm certainly having conversations with many, many folks about that. That's not to say that it can't and won't be challenged in court regardless. That certainly is very possible. But we have to take steps to solve this problem. And I will say, again, as I have been working on this, Minnesotans are contacting me frequently and asking about this and saying, thank you for working on this. Thank you for taking on this, because they recognize, and it is not a partisan issue. Minnesotans, Democrats, Republicans, independents, people with no political affiliation recognize that the explosion of money, and particularly dark money in our elections, is bad for democracy. It's bad for Americans. It's bad all the way around, and they don't like it. They want us to be working on solutions, and so we should be looking at all of the angles, all of the ways that we can approach that.
Yeah, you said it's not a partisan issue, and actually you've said you expect bipartisan opposition. Your bill's already been through 3 committees. Do you have any hope that it's going to pick up some bipartisan support along the rest of its journey?
I certainly hope so. I think it is true that I don't think this is a partisan issue, at least not outside of the Capitol. Sometimes issues are more partisan inside the Capitol, but when you talk to Minnesotans and we talk to Americans, people with no political affiliation, they are certainly recognizing this problem. And I am, willing to talk to anybody about this who wants to talk about it. I do anticipate we will continue to gain support as we move along, as more people become aware of it and more people are advocating for it, reaching out to their representatives and senators saying, can you, this is a way to do something about this. Can you please support it? So we'll see as we continue down this road.
Well, speaking about the journey, if it were to pass, could it impact this upcoming election season?
If it were to pass, it could. We have had discussions about when that effectiveness date should be, and it is possible that it could. We're getting pretty close to election season already as we go, and so it is probably unlikely to affect this upcoming election season. But the sooner we can make a difference and make a progress with this issue, the better.
Every step forward is progress. All right, Senator, thank you for the conversation. It's been great.
Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely.
Even though the federal SAVE Act has stalled in the U.S. Senate, Minnesota could still see tougher election security measures. Senate File 5050 would establish the SAVE Minnesota Act. The Republican-backed bill would require voters to show qualifying photo ID at the polls and during early and absentee voting. If voters can't provide proof of their identity, citizenship, or residence at the polls, they can cast a provisional ballot. The bill would also create free state-issued voter ID cards and requires county auditors and Minnesota's Secretary of State to remove non-citizens from voter rolls, among other provisions. It now waits to be heard in the Senate's Elections Committee.
Citizen engagement and participation is key when it comes to supporting our democracy. One way to do that is by voting. Another way to show your support is by donating to the political causes and campaigns you believe in. But sometimes donors are deceived and defrauded by scammers for their own financial gain. Now there's a push to prevent that.
In 2024, PACs called Patriots for American Leadership and Campaign for a Conservative Majority used a clip of President Trump's voice in a robocall, followed by President Trump needs your emergency support right now. This particular PAC was not affiliated with the Trump campaign, and they only donated about 3% of the $1.4 million they raised in donations. The other 97% were paid for vague and miscellaneous fundraising costs.
According to the FBI, scam PACs like these are on the rise. Scam PACs are deceptive political action committees that reroute your political donations and contributions for their own personal financial gain.
Citizens who think they're participating in the democratic process, who are donating money, they may be seniors, they could be others who may be vulnerable individuals. It's like any other fraud. They're giving their money somewhere that they really want their money to go, and it's not going there. And I think that is a harm.
Senator Bonnie Westland hopes to stop that harm with Senate File 1851. The bipartisan bill bans scam PACs and gives victims, the Attorney General, and others the ability to sue the fraudsters in civil court.
This is a consumer protection fraud thing that we have to keep pursuing, but I'm glad you are taking this step to start moving forward on that.
Can we cross state lines? If we've got a scam PAC in Minnesota, can the state attorney general go to Wisconsin, North Dakota, Florida?
Our Attorney General investigates all kinds of things that do cross state lines, so I think that does fall within their authority.
Senate File 1851 has been laid over for possible inclusion in a future omnibus bill, and if passed, it could go into effect this August. Meanwhile, Minnesota Attorney General Keith Ellison has shared some tips on how to protect yourself from scam PACs. First, don't rely on charitable-sounding names alone. Scam PACs choose names that sound charitable. Instead, do your own research, ask questions, and visit the PAC's website before donating. If you think you've been contacted by or donated to a scam PAC pretending to be a charity, you can report it to the Attorney General's office or the FBI's Minneapolis field office.
This year, all of our state Senate seats will be on the ballot in November. And while we don't officially know who's running yet, we do know who isn't.
So far, 14 legislators have announced they will not seek re-election. For the DFL, that list includes Senators Melissa Wickland, Steve Swazinski, Jim Carlson, Sandy Pappas, Ann Rest, Elise Mann, and Tu Zhang. On the Republican side, Senators Warren Limmer, Jeremy Miller, Steve Drazkowski, Jeff Howe, Bill Weber, Rich Draheim, and Gary Dames have all announced their decisions not to run for re-election. So how long do you have to wait until you learn who will be on your ballot running to represent you? Turns out, just about a month. Candidates can file their paperwork to run for a Senate seat starting May 19th. That filing window closes on June 2nd. To see a full calendar of all the upcoming election dates and deadlines, visit the Secretary of State's website at sos.mn.gov.
While we'll have to say goodbye to those senators after this session, this year also brought us the chance to welcome 2 new members. One of them is Senator Michael Holmstrom. He shared with me the journey that brought him here to the Senate and what he hopes to accomplish now that he's here. Senator, welcome to Senate Spotlight.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Absolutely, and welcome to the Senate in general. You are one of our newest senators. I want to talk about how you got here. The special election that seated you was due to the passing of the late Senator Bruce Anderson. It seems like you had a relationship with him. You called him a friend and a role model. So talk to me about how you guys met.
Yeah, so I've known Bruce since 2012. I was actually helping Marion then O'Neill, now Rarick, in her first election, and she wanted to introduce me to the great Bruce Anderson, who was our state rep at the time. And I remember we met at Culver's, and he had this everyone will remember the blaze orange business card that he carried around, and he handed me that business card. We got a nice conversation about hunting and then gun rights. And throughout the years, through our BPOU and Republican politics, Bruce was always there. He was the most constant thing in our state, in our local party. So every parade, every state fair and county fair, Bruce was just always there, and he always had wisdom and jokes, and he was just a good man. And it was a troubling loss for all of us.
I remember during your swearing-in ceremony, you had a moment of silence for him, and I thought that was really nice. And I have one of those blaze orange cards in my office. He gave me one as well, so he was still using them.
Yep.
You kind of alluded to this. This is your first elected office, but it's not your first brush with politics. You've been involved for quite some time. Tell me about those experiences you've had.
Yeah, so let's say, like I said, 2012 is when I first got in, and I was involved in pro-life politics for a long time. I've always been supportive of that since I was a lot younger, and even after 2012, I might not have been involved in Republican politics as much, but I was still going to the March for Life in DC. I was still active in the March for Life in St. Paul here, and in pro-life groups. And then when I came back to Wright County, I had to get back involved with the party, and was involved in many elections and knocking on doors and all that fun stuff that makes all this worth it.
Is knocking on doors fun?
Yes, the knocking on doors is exceptional because you have an opportunity to ask the questions and truly understand what people think. Because all politicians claim to speak for the people. We all claim to say that we know what our constituents want, but we don't until we knock on those doors.
Fair point. So you mentioned you've been involved since 2012. You were a bit younger then. Not all young kids are interested in politics. So what inspired you to get involved?
So again, coming from the pro-life issue, I had a deep understanding that policy is directly related to the real cost of the human cost of government failing or succeeding. And it felt too important to not be involved then, and it's still too important today.
Is that what inspired you to jump in as a candidate this go-round?
So again, it's the preeminent issue behind my political leanings. However, in 2021, my school, Buffalo High School and Buffalo School District, actually passed a policy allowing boys and girls sports. And I was there, I spoke against it at the time, we were ignored. The room was full of parents that were upset. And once again, I was reminded of the real life consequences of not paying attention to policy. And that really, it upset me. It made me decide I couldn't send my kids to that public school, which was the whole reason we had moved to the town to begin with. And I knew, once again, I had to get involved in a very serious way.
You used to be behind the scenes, a supporter of other candidates or going to these rallies. Now you're front and center. You are making these decisions. Has that transition been difficult?
It's actually really interesting because It's surreal. It really is. We had some difficult bills come through committee, and a lot of people reached out and they said, "Oh, you're at a 13-hour committee. That must have been rough." And I went, "No, because before this, I would have seen the committee and I would have been the guy yelling at my TV. And now I get to be the guy in the room who's saying the thing, and I have a responsibility to say and stand in the place of all the people who want to yell at their TV. So the difference is that it's a lot more responsibility, but it is a true privilege."
You're a small business owner. Tell me about that. What do you do when you're not here?
Yeah, so I own some properties that we rent out. I have a laundromat, I have a retail store, and I have a real estate business. So I'm very busy all the time. Wear a lot of hats, and it's been really interesting. So when I'm not here, in the next week, I'll probably be renovating one of my units, getting it ready for sale. And when I'm not here working, I'm out there working. And my kids usually come with, and we have a good time learning how to work on things and use our hands. You know.
Yeah, that is a great skill to have. How does that translate to your work here?
That's a great question. So when you have these experiences, you see how the government interacts. And again, policy coming full circle to real life, and especially in the real estate world, especially in rentals, I've been able to speak in committees and on the floor to experiences that I've had where government got in the way or government was able to solve a problem. And knowing where those shortcomings are, really, it brings a perspective, and every senator has a unique perspective that they bring here with their own lived experiences and the people they meet, and they're able to bring that to bear for the people they represent.
You seem, a policy guy, all about the policy. Something you've said relating to policy is the state needs reforms to rein in the budget and eliminate waste. So where would you start with that? That's a big topic.
It is. So, I might have had a more mixed up answer. I might have had a lot more to go into a few months ago or maybe a year ago, but we've really honed in at least $9 billion in fraud out of DHS. That's where we need to start. That's where Minnesotans are concerned about. We need to crack that open, really inspect what's happening, and figure out where the money's been wasted and how we can save it in the future.
To that end, you've introduced a bill to expand the state auditor's duties. Would they be able to help with that if your bill were to pass?
Absolutely. So this is one of the things that frustrated me when I got into politics, because nobody knows what the state auditor does. It's like your county commissioner. The what, But then when you learn about it, you think, oh, so the state auditor, if there's a problem with fraud, that's who's going to solve it. And you find out that that's not true. And when it used to be that when it was first created, and then it kept getting rolled back and rolled back and rolled back. Why have a constitutional position that doesn't have the power to handle what the people would naturally think it should? So it just made sense to me that if we're going to have an auditor, that person should be responsible and have the tools to do it.
Have you met State Auditor Julie Blah? She came on the show last session, and she was a treat.
I have not met Julie Blah.
Oh, you'll have to. All right, Senator. Well, thank you so much for your time here. It's been an absolute pleasure getting to know you, and welcome to the Senate.
Yes, thank you.
That's all the time we have today. Thank you for joining us, and see you next time.